Welcome to this ecology class. Today we are going to talk about population growth. I'm gonna explain the two models that we have to understand and to predict what is gonna happen with populations over time. So both models have two axes. One axis, the P one, is representing the population size, and the other axis is representing time. So in my first example, I'm gonna use rabbits because we know that rabbits reproduce a lot. So it's a good example, it's a good species to use as an example. So what happens with rabbits, if they have every single thing that they need, that means shelter, food, water, if they don't have enough predators, they are gonna grow continuously without stopping. If they have enough food, if they have enough space, they are going to continue. So I'm going to represent with this line this exponential growth. Do you see that they are growing over time, really fast over time? So this would be the first model that is called exponential growth. Exponential growth is very common in bacteria. It's very common in rats, cockroach, insects, basically most of them, and also humans. So what do you think is going to happen if they continue growing like this, if the population continues growing like this? Eventually, they are going to finish the supplies, they are going to they are going to have a space so crowded, no more food available for all of them. So we can predict that at some point they are going to finish everything. So the population is going to decline rapidly because they finish almost everything. Something that can tell us this type of chart when we see this type of behavior is that there's something there that is missing. Maybe the predator is missing. That's why the population of rabbits grow so fast, because they don't have predators. Maybe because hunting, poaching, we have a lack of predators, so maybe that's why it grows so fast. Or maybe because it's an invasive species, a species that it's not supposed to be there. So it's like a new species, okay, I'm gonna eat everything that is here. So that's very common, that is very, very common. So do you think that they're gonna continue like this, or this behavior it's also related to something that I'm gonna draw here as well? I'm gonna make a line here because something happened here. This is the line that represents K. K means carrying capacity. Carrying capacity, it's a concept that says that it's the maximum number of individuals that the environment can sustain, giving them enough supplies, enough shelter for everybody. So when they reach the carrying capacity, they continue this way. So at some point, all of this population, all of this line of population, it was like the extra. So the environment cannot sustain this behavior indefinitely. So the population declined. Humans have reached the carrying capacity several times. I think 5 times since the Industrial Revolution. But because we have technology, we have moved this line several times. So the Earth, it's changing because of us. Now we can grow food using the same surface, but we can. It's more productive, that area, because we have technology. So this exponential growth is not going to continue forever. We have a carrying capacity in every single environment. If we want to reproduce cows or stocks, basically livestock, we need to understand the carrying capacity. How many cows I can put in this place, giving all the cows what they need. Because if I overpass this carrying capacity, the environment cannot sustain that population size. So exponential growth over there. We have basically what is going to happen here, or the things that are going to stop the population to grow further. It's what we call limiting factors. There are density dependent limiting factors that they depend of the density, of how dense is that population, and we have density independent. So the most simple way to put the density independent is the natural disasters. It doesn't matter if you have a big population or just a few individuals from that species. The thing is that if that one is independent, if a tsunami comes to that place, it's gonna just disappear the entire population maybe, so it doesn't matter. Like the meteor that came million years ago and killed the dinosaurs, that was a limiting factor that stopped the population, and it was an independent factor, right? It's the things that we cannot control, organisms cannot control. And we have the density dependent limiting factors. For example, maybe here, if the predator were there, that this thing is not gonna happen. So density dependent factors could be predators that are gonna stop the population to grow further, food, water, shelter. Basically, if we have a lot of rabbits, at some point they are gonna finish the food. There's not gonna be enough space to have all of those rabbits, right? So the limiting factors are the things that are stopping the population to grow further. Which would be the limiting factors for humans? Maybe we have the same. We have pollution would be the density independent, the natural disasters, but I think because of technology, we have changed, we can adapt to those factors and we can grow even further, right? So the other model is the one that we call logistic growth. In the logistic growth, it's kind of like the balance. The population, it's balanced. We have at the beginning, it's gonna look like it's growing exponentially, but at some points, it's gonna remain the same. It's like it's in balance. The population is in balance. It's growing a little bit more, but then it decreases, and so on. Maybe forever. It depends on the limiting factors that they are controlling the population. So here we have, maybe this happens because they have reached the carrying capacity, and they have, remember this line represents carrying capacity, the maximum number of individuals that the environment can sustain. So in this type of curve, they reached and they overpassed this population of sheep. I'm gonna just say sheep. Overpass the carrying capacity here at this point. And when that happened, because they have maybe a farmer is controlling the population, or maybe the predators are controlling the population, they have a lot of limiting factors working there. So the population is gonna just be in a balance. The size is gonna just remain almost the same. I'm gonna represent another thing just to finish this logistic growth. Imagine that, well, this is an example of sheep, right? What is a limiting factors? Obviously, a limiting factor that they need. Well, they need food, right? So this green line that I'm gonna draw here is gonna represent grass. So imagine that you have a really huge population of grass. What is gonna happen if the sheep continue growing? Well, at some points, because you have a lot of sheep, that means that you are gonna have less. Oh, this line is like kind of like twisted. I don't like it. So that's it. So at some point, when the population of sheep increases their numbers, the population of grass declines, right? Because there are more sheep that are eating the grass. So when you don't have enough grass, what happens, and you the sheep overpass the carrying capacity, the population declines a little bit because no more grass, not enough grass for all of them. So what happens? What do you think is going to happen when the population of sheep declines? No more sheep eating a lot. So the population of grass is allowed to grow one more time. So as you can see here, this is a really, really important relationship between two species that are working together and are controlling each other. Maybe this grass was a plague. it was too much. So the ships are controlling the population of that weed. Maybe it was a weed, so they control the population. So now the population is in balance. But anyway, we could have a limiting factor, independent, density independent, that is gonna just break everything, a tsunami, I don't know, a flood. It could just flood the entire area, and the population is gonna change. What it matters for this lesson is that you see that populations are dynamic. They change over time. They don't remain the same. They are gonna change because we have a really an environment with a lot of processes happening there, and processes that sometimes we are not gonna be able to control. So, if you have any questions about the topic, ask me.